Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next lesson in the Su-25 Cadet series. This time we're going to talk about the SPO-15 radar warning receiver. Many people don't use it because they don't understand it. And remember that each instrument speaks its own language. It is your responsibility to learn that language, to learn how to interpret all the signals and information that instrument gives you. Therefore, many people do not pay attention to this RWR because they simply don't understand it. And some people just fly on the feeling, and some people just don't want to invest the time in trying to understand it, because it is some claim that it is harder to use than the simple Western one. It is not. It is actually very easy to understand as long as you know its language. Let's start with you are flying and suddenly a beep comes up and you see, whoops, this circle over here with the 50 number, this yellow circle lights up. Below that is a green dot. This means that 50 degrees to the left is a radar source. That radar source is your primary threat, and you know that because both the yellow light is on and the green one is on. Besides that, you also see that in the bottom row down here, you see that the first dot lines up with the yellow and a green one below it. The Latin N here is the Cyrillic P, and P in this instance means an interceptor. It does not technically limit itself to be radar energy for an interceptor. Just consider this airborne, a fighter of any kind. So we know 50 degrees to our left, we have been hit with radar energy, and the computer decides that that is our primary threat, and that threat is a airborne radar, a fighter radar. And then suddenly you see a snake or a light strip, as they call it, that this yellow snake, this yellow string with yellow dots on it. The way to interpret this is that this is the force with which your aircraft is being hit by radar energy. I have made a paint thingy bedingy here. The top one here is a ground-based radar, and this one is an enemy fighter. The easiest way I learned to understand this, and perhaps the easiest way that I can explain it, is that imagine that the radar energy is a voltage. You're being hit by 220 volt from the ground-based radar and the airborne fighter radar. What this ring shows you, this dot over here shows you that you're being hit by, let's say, 220 volt. This ring shows you how much amperage there is behind those 220 volt. That means that this is not a set distance. You cannot say that each dot is 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers. It all depends on how much wattage amperage is being pumped out by these radars. So they both spit out 220 volts, but the ground-based radar spits out, let's say, 100 amperes, while the fighter-based radar is only 20 amperes. Therefore, if suddenly the fighter-based radar disappears and is being taken over by the ground-based, this ring could be the same size. The same amount of dots could be lit up, but because it is further away but sends out with the stronger energy, the range proportional to the energy being sent out is the same. In this instance, we have a fighter-based radar, and we know from experience that a fighter-based radar this close means that the fighter sending or hitting us with his radar is soon within range of a MRAM or a Sparrow, because in a fighter-based radar this is not far away. What not far away is depends on a lot of factors. So now that the radar script or code has been rewritten, I do not know if there is a difference between a F5 radar, F16 or an F15. In real life, the radar on the F15 is much stronger, higher amperage than the F5. Therefore, if we had this distance in the A5, it would be just around our shoulders, while in the F15 it could be 40 kilometers away. So that is how you interpret this snake. The red dot in here indicates whether or not you are being locked by the radar and if there is detected a launch radar energy. Technically, it does not mean there is a launch, it just means that now the radar source have changed to fire control or missile control radar beam. But practically it means if it is flashing and saying beep 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 beep, there is a launch, there is a missile in the air heading for you. If it's just solid red and give out a beep, it only means that you are being locked. Being locked is not the same as being shot at. It is very close and you can interpret it like that, but it does not mean that there is a missile in the air. But always consider a lock being followed by a launch. In the middle of our aircraft here, we have a Latin B and a Latin N. In Cyrillic, this is a V, Victor, and this is a N, November. If only the top one is lit, it means that the radar energy from the primary source is from the horizon and up. It does not indicate whether it is at the horizon or 70 degrees up, just in the upper hemisphere. And remember, when I say from the horizon and up, it means if you are flying level. If you are pitching up 10 degrees, that upper hemisphere starts from 10 degrees and up. And logically, the lower one means that it is from the horizon and down. If both are lit, it means that the radar source is coming from approximately your own altitude. That is, I believe it is between -15 and +15, or it is not directly at your altitude. There is some tolerances in that. So that is just so you can get an indication of that. So if we were hit by a airborne fighter radar 50 degrees to our left, our primary threat, and only the bottom one lit up, it means there is a fighter 50 degrees to our left below us. That means that if we get a launch, we need to look to 50 degrees left and down for the missile. So below the light strip, as they call it. Oh, sorry, one more thing. The green dots, not followed by a yellow dot, is your secondary threat. Secondary threat does not count, distinguish between secondary, tertiary, and so on. It is just mean not primary threat. The two grayed out blinker lights, it look like the blinker in a car. It indicate whether or not the threats are in your rear hemisphere. Rear hemisphere to the left, rear hemisphere to the right. And in the bottom line here, you see we have our airborne radar, our primary threat, because both the yellow light and the green light is on, and our secondary threat is a medium range radar. The first light is airborne fighter radar. Next one is long range radar. Next one is medium range and short range early warning radar. And lastly, it is AWACS. You know that if the AWACS pops up, AWACS does not fire missile or SAMs at you, so that is not a very big threat at all. So do not be scared if this light turns on or lights up. Okay, so now we know yellow and green mean the primary threat. Only a green is a secondary threat. Constant red is lock. Blinking red is launch. Upper yellow means upper hemisphere. Lower yellow means lower hemisphere. Both means approximately your altitude. The light strip is indicating radar power or amperage, as we talked about before, and airborne radar or fighter radar, long range, medium range, short range, early warning, and AWACS. I have prepared a mission for me to fly, and let's get in there and you'll be able to see how the RWR lights up and the sounds. That is a lock, constant lock. And what does the RWR tell us? It tells us that it is in the frontal hemisphere, and both number 10 is lit up because it is exactly our heading. It also tells us that it is a long range radar, and because both the yellow light and green light is on, that is our primary threat. It also tells us that it is co-altitude, and as I said, it does not know the difference between a ground-based radar and an airborne radar, but because we are so low, it is co-altitude. And you can see that the light strip is almost or is completely lit up. That means we are very close to it because we are receiving almost full amperage from that long range radar. And constant red means we are locked, and we also get the audible warning, the constant lock tone. And now, that means a launch has been initiated. There is a missile in the air. Practically, there is a missile in the air towards us. And we have a flashing red. And the So, now it is time to try to avoid it. And suddenly, silence. No more warning and no more beeping. And maybe you think, wow, that was easy, already evaded. No, it is very important to understand that there is a dead spot directly under your plane, and because we are practically 90 degrees, or we actually 100 degrees roll, our bottom, our belly is pointed directly at the radar, and there is a dead spot there, and also directly above us. So if I go wings level now, the warnings will come back. It does not indicate that we have lost the radar or that we are behind ground cover or anything. Wings level. Yes, it comes back. So what we do is go low, go fast, and we started to pop flares. Listen for SAM launch or evading missile is a separate lesson. It is the next lesson. Now we can hear. Before that, we just have the doot 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 doot. That is a search radar. Every time you hear a beep, it is when you are relatively far away from the radar, 1 revolution from that radar. If there's only one radar and it takes a long way, there's a long time between each beep, you can tell that, okay, this is a huge radar. Therefore, there is a huge complex surrounding that radar. Something important. That also means that important stuff is protected very well. And suddenly that tone changed to a lock tone, a constant tone with a solid beep. And as we can see, it is between 50 degrees and 19 degrees. It is a long-range radar, and we are getting the full power from that. So between 50 and 90 degrees, that is roughly somewhere over there. So we know now that there is a radar site over there ready or willing to kill us. There is a missile in the air, or there is a launch initiated. We're going low and we're going fast. And we're popping flares at the same time. The next lesson will be how to avoid SAMs, because there's some theory behind that we need to... Oh! Okay, I got hit. Thankfully, this is not a lesson on how to avoid SAMs. The next lesson is how to avoid THAMs. So, I hope you understood how you should read the SPO-15, how you should interpret the visuals and the audibles from it. And as you saw, it is not that hard. We have been spoiled by spoon-feeding on the Western radars. It does not require any intellectual capacity to understand a Western RWR. I do not know how the modern Russian RWR looks, but if you're comparing the SPO-15 with the standard F-16 RWR, you can see that it shows you everything you need to know, but in a simplistic way. So thank you for watching, and we will see you again in the next lesson.